name is Megan Bliss. I am an integrative endocrinology nurse practitioner, essentially hormones. Today, I am going to be talking about a very loaded topic, and that is the teen mental health, how understanding our teens' brain chemistry can really save lives. While the majority of my personal clientele is women, I see patients of all ages and work with them. And over the past few years, my personal community has been affected by several tragic deaths of teenagers as a result of suicide. I have been asked by countless amounts of mothers, what is happening and what can we do? As a parent of a teenager, this topic is incredibly personal to me. And I know firsthand how confusing, frustrating, and even absolutely scary it can be when your child is struggling. While I wish that I could do a much deeper, comprehensive study on this topic pertaining to the information that I'm going to show you, I did, in the meantime, dive into what research is available, as well as tying into what I have experienced in my clinical practice. So, without further ado, I am going to present this loaded topic. Okay, teen brain, puberty, and mental health. Loaded topic for today. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among teenagers ages 15 to 19 in most countries, including the United States. In the US, approximately 14% of high school students have seriously considered attempting suicide, and about 10% have attempted in the past year. That number is astounding. So what we're going to cover today, it is structured to give you that comprehensive view of teen mental health challenges, and we'll look at both biological, internal processes and then external pressures that are affecting our teenagers. And by the end, I'm hoping you'll be able to have actionable strategies and direction to help support your teens' well-being. And why this matters, because we cannot brush this under the rug anymore. The rising mental health crisis for teens is so astounding. The teen years have always been tough, but today's world is wild and presents unique challenges. There's so many things that are affecting our teenagers. These teen suicide rates have increased over 60% over the past decade. Boys are 3 to 4 times more likely to die by suicide than girls. 50% of mental health conditions start by the age of 14, yet most go undiagnosed. And impulsivity plays a huge role. Most suicides happen within 10 minutes of the decision. So let's talk about the biology of puberty and brain development. During puberty, our children experience dramatic changes. Their emotional centers are active, yet the areas responsible for regulating behavior are definitely still developing, and this mismatch can really explain why our teenagers are sometimes making really impulsive or risky decisions. There's the rapid hormonal shifts during puberty. We're going to go into the data behind all of this in a minute. The limbic system, which is your emotions and rewards, becomes highly active and sensitive. The prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making and impulse control, matures later in adulthood. And this developmental gap can lead to increased impulsivity and then some emotional volatility. So let's talk about some contributing factors in teen mental health. There's the fluctuating hormones. Puberty changes are happening. Testosterone is surging in boys, and then estrogen and progesterone is surging in girls. And this really does affect mood and stress response. Then there's neurotransmitter imbalances. Disruptions in dopamine, serotonin, and GABA levels can drive impulsivity, depression, anxiety, all of this. There are definitely genetic polymorphisms, variants like your MTHFR, COMT, MAOA, and the serotonin transmitters definitely influence and regulate our moods. Nutrient deficiencies, insufficient vitamin D, magnesium, omega-3s, B vitamins, and zinc impair teenagers, all humans, brain function. There's social issues, the peer pressure, cyberbullying, isolation, and academic stress are all coming at a head. And these external pressures are putting our teenagers under a vice. There's lifestyle factors, poor sleep, excessive screen time, sedentary behavior, and then just that nutritional quality really disrupts the brain chemistry. There's environmental exposures. Pollutants and endocrine disruptors can for sure negatively impact the hormonal and the neurohormone, which is your neurotransmitter balance and brain development. And then impulsivity. The convergence of all of the above factors often manifests as impulsivity, which will definitely increase the risk of self-harm and suicidal behavior. So, who is most at risk? Obviously, teenagers who have mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, bipolar disorder, among so many others. Substance use, any alcohol intake, drugs, vaping, this really impairs judgment. Family history of suicide and mental illness and substance abuse. Bullying and social isolation, cyberbullying, feeling left out, recent loss or trauma, the death of a loved one, a breakup, major life change. And then there are the vulnerable populations like the LGBTQ plus teens. These high-risk teens often will show more of a combination of these risk factors. And if your teen has multiple of these, definitely take action earlier. As I've discussed, today's teens face unique challenges that were less prevalent in early generations. Social media has created a world of constant comparison and chronic stress, and teens are exposed to completely unrealistic standards, cyberbullying, and these dopamine-driven platforms that can really hijack their emotional regulation. At the same time, we've got a lot of academic and social pressures that are at an all-time high. And I would conversely say we've got some parenting techniques that maybe don't ease them into these social pressures or these social and academic pressures. Teens feel pressure to perform at school sports, social life, and often at the expense of their own emotional well-being. Add to that teens are having more of an increase in sedentary lifestyle and a diet that is reliant on processed foods. All of this will really lead to nutrient deficiencies, which will directly impact mood and behavior. Finally, those environmental issues like pollutants, endocrine disruptors, all of these can subtly affect their brain and their hormonal development. And together, these challenges that were not present or at the degree that they are today versus 20 years ago can really create a perfect storm that exacerbates mental health struggles in teenagers. Teen suicide rates tend to show seasonal patterns with higher rates in the late winter, early spring, and this trend is different from the common belief that suicide rates peak during the holidays. There's increased end of year academic stress, graduation. These transitions can contribute to feelings of hopelessness, more energy as you're coming out of winter. That depression, especially if they've got depression, they might have more energy to act on suicidal thoughts in the late winter, early spring. Then there's the biological factors, those seasonal changes in sunlight and hormonal and nutrient shifts really do affect your serotonin, your melatonin fluctuations that definitely happen in the winter. Obviously, vitamin D issues definitely impact those mood disorders. And then there's social disengagement when sports, especially outdoor sports or activity breaks. This can really isolate teens who heavily rely on these social settings for support. Okay, let's dive into understanding the link between impulsivity and suicide risk. Impulsivity increases the risk of acting on suicidal thoughts before a teen has time to reconsider. It's especially concerning when combined with that depression or anxiety, substance use, high stress or emotional dysregulation, a history of trauma or bullying, or social media algorithms that are sucking them in. There are some signs of high impulsivity in teens. There's behavioral signs, so acting without thinking about consequences, frequent interrupting or blurting out thoughts, reckless behavior like speeding, substance use, dangerous dares, a quick shift or these extreme mood shifts, difficulty following rules or resisting peer pressure, trouble delaying gratification. They can't save money. They need those immediate rewards, that dopamine hit. Then there is the signs of high impulsivity in teens. There's emotional signs, overreacting to small problems. To step away for a second, there are emotional signs, overreacting to small problems, explosive anger or crying spells, difficulty managing frustration, and then there's a sudden withdrawal from family or friends. Recognizing these is very important. The social and school signs, frequent conflict with peers, teachers, or family, skipping school or quitting activities suddenly, online impulsivity, oversharing, risky social media posts. That can be one of those hidden signs. Difficulty maintaining friendships due to erratic behavior. So, to kind of assess for this impulsivity for parents, it can be good to ask yourself, does my teen frequently act without thinking? Do they struggle with emotional outbursts or sudden mood shifts? Have they talked about feeling hopeless or worthless? Do they take dangerous risks without considering the consequences? Uh, have they made alarming statements like, I don't care anymore, or I wish I could disappear? If you answer yes to multiple of these questions, it's time to check in with your teens and consider seeking support for sure. Okay, we're going to dive into neurotransmitters. Imagine the teen brain as a car. Dopamine is the gas pedal that pushes them towards excitement and novelty, while GABA is the brake that helps slow things down. Serotonin, meanwhile, is kind of the steering wheel that will help guide mood and impulse control. And when these neurotransmitters are imbalanced, it can lead to heightened impulsivity, anxiety, or depression. And it's very hard to see on the screen here, but this diagram really is a roadmap of the brain's main communication systems. And it shows how, like, the glutamate system here is a gas pedal. It excites the brain. The GABA system calms it down. The dopamine system rewards. It's very much the reward network can drive motivation and pleasure. And the serotonin system will be that mood regulator, that steering wheel, and it'll help stabilize emotions. And let me go back there. And if you see here, because we talked about hormones too, and it's hard on here, there's this red little triangle here. Those are estrogen receptors. These are progesterone receptors. And our hormones are playing a very big role. This was a study that was more on women and mental health, and that I was able to get this diagram. So there wasn't a good testosterone visual, but I know it's there. Another reason why I want to do a deeper dive study into all of this. Neurotransmitter patterns associated with high impulsivity. That dopamine, the risk-taking, impulsivity, addiction, when it's high, dopamine can do that. When dopamine is low, they're going to have low motivation because it is such an excitatory neurotransmitter. There's going to be low motivation, decision fatigue, and there are some simple strategies that we can implement if they are on one end or the other of the spectrum. Serotonin. It's rare to have high serotonin, but it can cause apathy, just bleh, feeling. If it's low, you're going to have more mood swings, aggression, poor impulse control. Norepinephrine, you're going to have overreactivity, emotional volatility. If it's high, or if it's low, you're going to have fatigue and slow processing. And GABA, it's very rare to have high GABA unless you're supplementing. But if it is low, you can have racing thoughts, you can have that stewing, and then poor impulse control. Like I said, there are strategies when someone is out of balance that we can implement to bring these back into balance. I'm going to show you a sample report. This doesn't show necessarily impulse control abnormals here, but this is a report that I get on patients. We've got our dopamine here. Like I said, when it is too high, impulse control is going to happen. So we've got our list of excitatory neurotransmitters. These are things that like rev the brain up, which we need. We need the brain going. But then we also need a good balance of these inhibitory neurotransmitters in order to have that stability in our mental health. And I would love to do a study and based on this information here and using this test. Then there's genetics. These genetic polymorphisms really illustrate how our biological makeup, how we're made, can contribute to or even predispose people to mood disorders and suicidal behaviors. Our genes are not everything. It doesn't mean just because we have the genetic makeup that it's going to happen, but it can really help us understand individuals and mood disorders and suicidal behavior. And understanding these pathways can help us to really develop more targeted interventions, from nutritional support to lifestyle changes, to mitigate the risk of these polymorphisms manifesting. So when we look at this first one, which is the MTHFR mutation, this mutation reduces the risk of the body's ability to metabolize folic acid efficiently, leading to lower levels of serotonin and dopamine. This can happen, and this can increase the risk of depression in teenagers for sure. A common intervention that we use with this genetic mutation is to supplement with methylated B vitamins, which can help bypass that metabolic hurdle. The COMT mutation slows down the breakdown of dopamine. While dopamine is essential for that reward and motivation, too much of it, like we've talked about, uh, can really lead to that heightened impulsivity and aggression, behavioral struggles, and nutritional interventions may help modulate this effect. MAOA mutation. This is responsible for clearing serotonin in the brain. And when this process is impaired by a mutation, it can result in very volatile fluctuations of serotonin levels, which may lead to pronounced mood swings and increased risky business, those behaviors that are definitely higher risk. Then there's some lifestyle modifications and targeted therapies that can definitely be helpful in managing these mood fluctuations. There's a vitamin D receptor mutation. This is something that I've dealt with a lot in adults who have been chronically low in vitamin D. This mutation affects the absorption of vitamin D, which can lead to lower overall levels. And since vitamin D plays such a crucial role in mood regulation, its deficiency can increase the risk of depression significantly. Interventions often include increased sun exposure and specific vitamin D supplementation, making sure that the other minerals are balanced in order to get vitamin D where it needs to go and doing what it needs to do. Here are some genetic sample reports that I have had with my patient population. This is the dopamine synthesis and function pathway. This one right here is where we have a red flag, and this is the dopamine receptor activation. We can have hiccups, or I call them speed bumps, with my patient at any point in this. If this COMT has a little bit of a speed bump, that's when some of the dopamine can back up, and it can lead to, and we need a constant flow of hormones and neurotransmitters, and we need them to, once they've been used, to get out so that we don't have a backup of things. Think about a stagnant pond. When it is not flowing, it's going to get toxic. But a flowing creek is cleaner water, all of that. Vitamin D, sometimes we have issues converting sunlight into vitamin D3. Then other people have issues with activation, transportation. So knowing this, we can really target supplementation and know simple strategies to improve those levels. Here is the serotonin production pathway, the synthesis of 5-HTP, which does require folate, and conversion of that 5-HTP to serotonin requires key nutrients like vitamin B6 and zinc in order to make serotonin. Then there's a methylation pathway, and this is where MTHFR, like I was talking about, comes into play, and it's the conversion of folic acid into activated folate, and then it goes throughout the rest of this methylation pathway. And when we have little speed bumps, hiccups, it can make so many processes in the body, hormonal, neurological, neurotransmitters, so many processes more difficult. Now let's dive into some nutritional deficiencies that are very common. Obviously, we've talked a lot about vitamin D. Magnesium is another one. Omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins like your B6, your B12, your folate, iron stores, and zinc. Vitamin D is key for regulating mood and that serotonin synthesis. And a deficiency is often linked with depression and other mood disorders. So ensuring that sunlight exposure or dietary intake is adequate, or those genetic polymorphisms are optimized, is very important. Magnesium helps boost GABA. GABA is what puts the brakes on. GABA is calming. GABA is beautiful, helps calm the nervous system. When teens are deficient in magnesium, they can experience more anxiety, sleep issues, making it very difficult to function. And making those dietary sources, like you're seeing here, those leafy greens and nuts, seeds, legumes, very essential in their health. Omega-3 fatty acids, these are vital for brain cell structure and help reduce inflammation. Low levels are associated with mood instability and cognitive issues, so including sources like fatty fish and flaxseed is very important. The B vitamins. B vitamins are critical for producing key neurotransmitters, and without them, teens might experience fatigue, depression, cognitive difficulties. A diet rich in lean meats, leafy greens, and fortified cereals can really help, along with supplementation, strategic supplementation as needed. Iron is necessary for oxygen transportation, the synthesis of dopamine. Deficiencies in iron can lead to symptoms that are presenting as a diagnosis like ADHD, such as fatigue, poor concentration. So proper dietary intake is essential. And then zinc. Zinc supports neurotransmitter function and cognitive development. Its deficiency has been linked to so many mood disorders, depression. So, including a lot of zinc rich foods or supplements can be very beneficial. Here is a sample report of a comprehensive micronutrient panel that I like to do in a lot of my patients. And we're seeing several insufficiencies here, borderline insufficiencies, and a lot of these altogether will significantly impact mental health. Now diving into hormones, which is one of the very critical aspects of teenage brain development. So estrogen supports serotonin production. They are very tightly linked. Testosterone affects dopamine sensitivity. So when we're having this big spike, we're more sensitive to dopamine. Cortisol is the body's fight or flight hormone, and obviously that is at play here. Let's dive into boys. In boys, the dramatic rise in testosterone not only causes those physical changes that we see in here, but also significantly impacts brain chemistry with heightened dopamine sensitivity, like I was talking about. That risk taking can become more rewarding. And if serotonin and GABA are low along with it, it can lead to impulsive and sometimes dangerous behaviors. Then adding in those genetic predispositions, like mutations in COMT, all of this together can really intensify these effects. So if you look in these charts, you're going to see with that testosterone surge, that testosterone could go up to 30 times, like from where it was, and it'll rewire the brain. And really gear them up for that thrill-seeking behavior. It explains why boys are so much more prone to engage in reckless behaviors like substance abuse, stunts that make our minds boggled, risky sexual behavior, all of that. Testosterone's interaction with the dopamine makes that risk-taking much more rewarding. They get more of that dopamine hit with it. When serotonin and GABA, which normally regulate, put the brakes and the steering wheel on things, when these are low, the testosterone-driven surge in impulsivity can lead to aggression, depression, or even self-harm. That dopamine overload and impulsivity, that dopamine activity increases significantly during puberty. That heightened dopamine reward drives that risky behaviors, and they crave that novelty, the excitement, the instant gratification due to that increased dopamine signaling and sensitivity. Low baseline dopamine levels from whatever it might be might further push them to seek more dopamine, essentially. So there's both ends of the spectrum here. Overstimulation of dopamine receptors via social media, gaming, or substance abuse can lead to what we would term, and there's not a medical diagnosis with it, but what we would term dopamine burnout, which contributes to apathy, depression, or extreme risk taking. That low serotonin, while serotonin normally helps regulate the steering wheel, the mood, the impulse control, and emotional stability, testosterone might suppress serotonin production. And then there's the genetics or the micronutrient deficiencies or other dietary issues may further lower its levels in boys. The combination of the low serotonin with high testosterone and dopamine amplifies those mood swings, the irritability, and aggression. And this imbalance can lead to severe emotional dysregulation. Low serotonin levels are linked to increased suicidal ideation, impulsive self-harm, especially in boys are already prone to aggression and poor impulse control. That GABA deficiency, that GABA, that's the brake, it really is necessary to calm overstimulation. Puberty can decrease GABA activity, reducing the ability to regulate those intense emotions. Why it matters: without that adequate GABA, boys experience higher levels of anxiety and have a very hard time calming down. And this lack of regulation might lead them to self-medicate with alcohol or drugs or engage in other risky behaviors. Insufficient GABA results in poor impulse control, leading to that aggression, the reckless decisions, or self-harm. That prefrontal cortex, the brain development, really affects their decision making. It really does not fully develop until the age of 25. The limbic system, which is the emotions and rewards, is fully activated. So that's where another tipping point happens here. And this developmental gap means that while boys feel intense emotions and seek immediate rewards, they often lack the ability to think and look long term at the consequences. And it results in a lot of split second decisions that are not fully thought out. Boys with underdeveloped impulse control, especially those who have conditions like ADHD, anxiety, or depression, are definitely at a higher risk of dangerous behaviors, self-harm, or substance abuse. So, who is at the highest risk? Boys who are more vulnerable tend to have the low serotonin function, which will lead to that poor impulse control, the aggression, and depression. A high dopamine sensitivity, making them more prone to addictive, risk-taking behaviors. And then you add in that testosterone surge in there, and it is like adding fuel to the fire. They'll have the low GABA activity, which will result in heightened anxiety and emotional reactivity. There's those genetic factors like MTHFR mutations, which will affect the neurotransmitter processing, or the COMT-MAOA variants. And those nutrient deficiencies, including iron, vitamin D, or B12, which increase the risk of mood disorders. Now let's shift over to the girls. For girls, the hormonal journey involves more fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone. While estrogen can enhance serotonin production, its variability can cause mood swings. And combined with a lot of potential nutrient deficiencies or genetic factors, some girls become way more vulnerable to anxiety and depression. And lab testing can often help us identify these imbalances. Hormonal fluctuations and emotional instability. It's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster. During puberty, girls experience dramatic fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone, and these shifts modulate that serotonin production and affect the mood regulation. And then it can lead to significant mood swings, heightened emotional sensitivity, periods of anxiety or depression. And then when you combine this with low baseline serotonin or those nutrient deficiencies, these can really increase the risk of depression, self-harm, or suicidal ideation. Dopamine dysregulation and reward sensitivity. Although dopamine is key to our reward system, in girls, hormonal influences might alter that signaling, making them especially sensitive to social rewards and stress. And this can lead to behavior where they're seeking immediate gratification and validation from external sources. That overstimulation might lead to those high reward activities might lead to dopamine burnout, further destabilizing the mood and increasing the vulnerability to depressive states. With low serotonin, fluctuating estrogen levels affect that serotonin synthesis and reuptake, like we talked about. Chronic stress or genetic predispositions might actually further lower the serotonin levels in girls, and it is very important for mood stability, impulse control, and emotional well-being. Low serotonin levels are closely linked with anxiety, depression, and emotional stability. Girls with low serotonin might experience an increase in suicidal ideation and impulsive behavior, especially during periods of that hormonal instability throughout their menstrual cycles. GABA deficiency and impaired emotional regulation. So GABA helps calm the brain, like we've talked about, and when its levels are low, girls may find it difficult to manage intense emotions, leading to heightened anxiety and an increased likelihood of impulsive, harmful behaviors. Inadequate GABA is needed to, well, inadequate GABA is, it might make it so that girls are not able to get those breaks on those intense emotional responses. The prefrontal cortex delay and decision making, because it is so important. Again, this doesn't fully develop until mid-20s. The limbic system is in full overdrive, and so there's definitely an imbalance there, and it further contributes to those intense emotions without the full capacity to regulate them or consider those long-term consequences. So girls with additional vulnerabilities, such as if they have hormonal imbalances that we often see in teenage girls or low serotonin, they're at heightened risk for impulsive decisions that can lead to self-harm or suicidal behavior. So what girls are more vulnerable or at higher risk? They tend to have fluctuating estrogen and low serotonin function, and this will lead to that mood instability and sensitivity, anxiety, and depression. Altered dopamine sensitivity, and this increased sensitivity to social and emotional rewards might result in impulsive behaviors and a tendency towards addictive patterns, excessive social media use, and all of the above. Low GABA activity, this manifests as increased anxiety, emotional reactivity, making it challenging to manage stress effectively. Then there's those genetic factors. If they've got the MTHFR mutations, which that folate metabolism and other polymorphisms will influence those estrogen receptor functions or the serotonin processing, which will heighten that vulnerability. And then those nutrient deficiencies. Iron deficiency is very common in adolescent girls, often due to menstrual blood loss, and can contribute to fatigue and mood disturbances. Deficiencies in vitamin D and B12 can exacerbate symptoms of depression and anxiety, for further compromising mental health. A couple of the hormonal testing that I like to do in both men and women, boys and girls, is salivary hormone testing to see the balance of bioavailable hormones. And then there is urinary metabolite testing that'll look and see how our body is processing hormones, if they're going down good pathways, bad pathways, and if it's being efficient. Also, it looks at the bisphenol A, BPA levels to see if that's an issue in dealing with these hormonal dysregulations. Let's talk about some integrative strategies for supporting all teens, because I do believe that there's so much that can be done, and that using an integrative approach can be very, very helpful. So first up, we've got a nutrient-rich diet, proper sleep, targeted supplementation, mind and body practices, and then some environmental and lifestyle adjustments. And these interventions can really help support healthy production of neurotransmitters, hormones, and support healthy brain development. And these interventions work for both boys and girls. So, nutritionally, balancing the blood sugar can really help reduce mood swings. So, some things that you can implement in your homes, and this is super helpful for the entire family. Start by ensuring your teen gets 20 to 30 grams of protein at every single meal. Eggs, grass-fed meat, Greek yogurt, protein smoothies, all of this protein provides the building blocks, the amino acids, which these amino acids are essential for the brain to produce neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, all of that. Think about incorporating these foods into their breakfast routine or even protein smoothies, all of that. This is going to help support not only stable energy levels in teenagers who are often overworked and all of the above, but also help maintain a balanced mood. Pairing carbs, any carbohydrate snacks, with a protein or healthy fat will help prevent crashes. When your teen eats carbohydrates, pairing them with a protein or a healthy fat can make a big difference. This combination slows down digestion and prevents sudden spikes and drops in blood sugar. For example, instead of just having an apple, which is healthy, try pairing it with some almond butter. The small change can really help sustain energy and mood regulation throughout the day. Obviously, avoiding ultra-processed foods, sugary drinks, and these will often cause some dopamine spikes, which might sound fun right then, but they can lead to mood swings, worsen impulsivity, that dopamine receptor sensitivity issues. And these foods tend to disrupt blood sugar balance, which is a key factor in stable mood regulation. Consider a high protein snack before bed. And this depends. Sometimes when we test, we have to say no protein at bed, but considering a high protein snack before bed can prevent overnight dips in blood sugar, which tend to disrupt sleep and mood. Improving sleep for better emotional regulation. I see this with my kids. I see both the balancing of the blood sugar and the improved sleep really helps with emotional regulation. Teens with poor sleep are 2 to 3 times more likely to struggle with impulsivity, the mood swings, and risky behavior. Sleep is essential for brain recovery and emotional regulation. Teens should aim for 8 to 10 hours of quality sleep each and every night. Reducing screen time before bed is key because the blue light from devices can interfere with our melatonin production, which will make it harder for them to fall asleep and stay asleep. Supplementing with things like magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate before bed can help promote relaxation and support that healthy circadian rhythm. And glycine can also be very helpful there too. There's also some sleep-friendly herbal support like ashwagandha, passion flower, or lemon balm tea if a habit is needing to be implemented. As I said, reducing stimulants and screen time overload. This is key to maintaining emotional balance, healthy circadian rhythm. First of all, limiting caffeine from sources like espresso, energy drinks, and soda, because soda is going to disrupt that blood sugar balance. Energy drinks are going to disrupt cortisol and melatonin dance, and teens are very sensitive to overstimulation. Next, encouraging a dopamine detox hours, time away from social media, gaming, TikTok, all the things. Even 1 to 2 hours daily makes a big difference. Replace that fast dopamine hit with slow dopamine activities like exercise, other hobbies like puzzles, crocheting, anything. This helps prevent overstimulation of the dopamine pathways, which makes impulse control much harder. Also, music, nature time, all of that, very important. Targeted supplementation is a very powerful tool in balancing neurotransmitters. For teens who are showing signs of high impulsivity, overstimulation, and due to excessive dopamine, L-theanine or adaptogens can really help provide a calm state without sedation. And those adaptogens like ashwagandha, all of that, can help manage stress and balance hormonal fluctuations. When serotonin is low, which can often happen, supplements like 5-HTP or L-tryptophan, especially when combined with B vitamins and omega-3s, can really support serotonin production and then improve the mood overall. For those with low GABA levels, which contributes to anxiety and poor impulse control, supplements such as GABA or magnesium can help calm the nervous system and enhance emotional regulation. Also very important to support emotional regulation with mind-body practices. And if only we all were taught this at a younger age, I think the world would be a better place. For teenagers in particular, there's cold exposure, like cold showers or cryotherapy. This will naturally boost dopamine and norepinephrine and can help improve impulse control. Sauna therapy. It'll naturally detox dopamine when an overload is present. Breath work, box breathing, or physiological sighing can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which will reduce emotional reactivity. A weighted blanket, 10 to 15% of their body weight, can help regulate the nervous system and improve sleep. Yoga or Tai Chi shown to improve self-regulation in teens. Introducing real-world challenges instead of video games or social media. Things like sports, action hobbies, volunteer opportunities, community service, puzzles. Yes, even puzzles can be helpful. Or part-time jobs can be helpful to get their brain more developed in the real world. Encouraging outdoor activities and nature time is one of the critical aspects of natural mood regulation. Environmental and lifestyle adjustments. Obviously, monitoring and managing screen time and social media exposure. Our modern environment can be so overwhelming to teenagers, and monitoring and managing that screen time, even when you get kickback, is very, very crucial, as these can contribute to overstimulation, that immediate dopamine response, and then a negative self-comparison, which will exacerbate anxiety and depression. Creating a supportive home environment is equally as important. Establishing consistent routines, sleep, wake, chores, all of the things help provide structure, while open and non-judgmental communication, which I feel is very difficult and a skill that we all need to develop easier, can make teens feel heard and supported. And this supportive setting is key for them, for helping them manage stress and develop healthy coping strategies. Obviously, if we lived in utopia where we could do regular testing and intervention on all adolescents, if impulsivity, mood swings, or risky behavior persist, labs really can reveal those hidden biochemical imbalances and make it easier to target not only nutritional, lifestyle, supplemental interventions, but also pharmacological interventions, which means medication. And medication can sometimes get kids out of crisis mode. So if, like I said, if I lived in a utopia society and I had a lovely big grant opportunity, this is what I would be diving into with our kids. So how to talk to your teen about suicide and mental health. Many parents fear bringing up suicide will plant the ideas in their child's mind, and this is actually a myth. Talking openly reduces the risk, and it actually helps your teen feel supported and seen in life. So we're going to talk about what to do. Ask directly. Have you ever thought of hurting yourself? Stay calm and non-judgmental, which is difficult. Validate their feelings. I see you're struggling. You are not alone. offer help. Let's find someone who can help us navigate this and keep communication open and ongoing. Don't ignore the signs or assume it's just a phase. React with anger or guilt trips. Don't say you have so much to live for. This can actually feel very invalidating. Don't make threats. If you don't snap out of it, I'll take away your phone. It is good to have boundaries and consequences for actions, but this phrase can be very harmful. What steps can parents do? Obviously, building that safe environment, removing access to firearms if there is any issues, locking them up, teaching proper safety there, prescription medications, other lethal means, sharp objects, ropes, all of the above. Prioritize sleep, nutrition, and routine. Stability helps emotional regulation, that those consistent boundaries and the schedule, very important. Encourage professional support, therapy, to build the emotional tools, to learn these emotional tools and have them in the toolbox, very important. Psychiatrist, to help navigate the pharmacology, the medication aspect of things. I would even say a primary care provider will help navigate these things, especially if they feel safe with that person. And then obviously an integrative health provider, which is what I do, can assess deeper issues like that deep testing that I talked about. Then strengthening social connection, encouraging those activities that boost confidence and provide emotional support. And this also presents them with the opportunity for failing forward, failing in intervals so that they learn that failing is not always a bad thing. And then obviously monitoring online behavior and having access to your teenagers' social media and seeing what algorithms they're in. Cyberbullying and social media overuse definitely increases that risk. This is the topic that I personally need. How to approach a resistant teen showing signs of a mental health struggle. When a teen is showing signs of impulsivity, emotional distress, or risks of suicide, but resist acknowledging it or making changes, it can be very frustrating and worrisome for parents. The key is to approach the conversation in a way that lowers defenses, builds trust, and creates a safe space for them to open up without feeling judged or forced into action. Let's talk about adjusting your approach first, building that trust. Many teens shut down or reject help because they feel misunderstood, criticized, or judged. They feel like they're being forced to change. They're feeling overwhelmed and unsure how to start. So instead of pushing, shift the approach to curiosity, trust, and empowerment. Use indirect and non-threatening openers rather than directly saying, I think you have a problem. Start with a neutral or curious approach, asking for their opinion. Hey, I've been reading how stress and hormones affect impulse control. What do you think about this? Do you understand that? Do you think social media makes people more impulsive or stressed? I'm curious about your thoughts. Make it about others, not them at first. A lot of teens struggle with feeling overwhelmed or acting without thinking. Do you see this happening with your friends? I heard someone say they always regret the things they do when they're mad. Have you ever felt like that? Use pop culture, media, or relatable figures. Reference movies, music, YouTubes, or influencers that you know that they respect. Hey, I saw a clip where insert influencer or whatever talked about how they used to act without thinking and it messed things up. Have you ever thought about that? Show TikTok videos or podcasts discussing emotions and impulsivity without making it about them. Avoid these common parent pitfalls, which I am not perfect in parenting at all. Don't use fix-it language. This is something that I have a hard time doing. You need to change your behavior. Avoid labeling. You're so impulsive. This can feel like an attack, or calling names or whatever. Skip the blame game. Why do you always act this way? Don't force the conversation. If they shut down, back off and try again later in a calm moment. Normalizing mental health. Explain that emotions, impulsivity, and stress are very normal for teenagers. Share personal experience to make it less intimidating. I remember making some really dumb decisions when I was your age, when I was angry, and I did not know how to handle my emotions back then. Emphasize brain development. This is something that is huge, letting them know that their brains are still developing, and impulse control is one of the last things to mature. So it's not their fault. It's just how the brain works, and there's things that we can do to make it happen quicker, essentially. Offer control instead of demands. Teens resist when they feel like they're being controlled or lectured. Instead, give them choices. I've noticed you seem stressed lately. Would you rather talk to me or someone else, or read something on your own at first to kind of help with this process? Ask for their input. I want to support you, but I don't want to push. What is the best way for me to do that? Offer small steps. Would you be open to trying one small thing just for a week to see if it helps? Whether it's going to be a better sleep schedule, bringing your phone into my bedroom at night, or plugging your phone in away from your bedroom at night for 2 hours before bed. Magnesium supplement, some box breathing, some deep breathing techniques. One thing a week. Use nonverbal connection if they don't want to talk. Some teens will not open up verbally, but they respond better to actions than words. I highly suggest every parent, do you know your teen's love language? Are books that talk about the love languages, and there's one specifically for kids too, knowing how they feel loved. The best can be so helpful in navigating this phase of life, because I definitely feel like teenagers need to know that they're loved, that they can be forgiven for whatever transgressions or whatever wrongdoings they've done, and that there's hope for the future. Spend time doing an activity they enjoy. Yes, gaming within reason, going for a drive, shooting hoops, going to the golf course, riding a horse in our situation. Conversations feel safer when they're side by side rather than face to face, especially in the parent versus teen way of life. Write them a note or a text if they shut down when they talk to you. Model healthy habits yourself. And I think this is the crux of what we personally can do, is modeling healthy body, mind techniques, meditation, exercise, journaling, without forcing them to join, maybe encouraging them, but letting them see it's a normal way to manage emotions. That instilling a hope mindset. I want to talk about instilling hope in our teens, which is a perspective that helps them look forward to the future, including the exciting possibilities of adulthood. I was telling somebody yesterday, sometimes we complain about adulthood and that adulting sucks. And sometimes it makes it seem like to them, like, I don't want to grow up. This is the best time in my life. But there's exciting possibilities about becoming an adult despite the challenges they are facing right now. First, it's important to foster a positive outlook by helping our teens see that their current struggles are just a part of a larger journey towards a brighter future. Encourage them to set clear, achievable goals that guide towards personal growth and outline the kind of adult that they aspire to be. And this can be as simple as planning for a new hobby, or as ambitious as dreaming about their future careers. Next, stress the importance of a growth mindset. Teach your teens to view setbacks as opportunities to learn rather than failures. Every challenge can be a stepping stone to success when they use it as a chance to grow and improve. Celebrate every small success along the way. Acknowledging progress, no matter how small, can really help build their confidence and reinforces the belief that positive change is possible. And this positive reinforcement can be a powerful motivator. And I also believe in saying thank you for any participation in helping in the home is important there. Encouraging your teens to seek guidance from mentors and role models. Have other adults be very important in their lives, maybe some who have navigated similar challenges. These relationships can provide such valuable insights and real life examples of overcoming obstacles and achieving goals. Finally, practical journaling tools like journaling, visualization exercises. This can really help solidify this hopeful perspective. When teens take the time to write about their aspirations or vividly imagine their future, it makes a decision, the idea of a better tomorrow, feel so much more real and attainable in their life. And one of the most important aspects is know when to step in, even if they resist. Get immediate action if you see serious signs of distress, impulsive self-harm, or obviously suicidal ideation. I don't want to be here. Everyone would be better without me. You guys would be better off without me. Do not wait for them to agree to get help. Some situations require parental intervention, even if they resist, including that risk-taking behaviors, speeding, the substance abuse, sudden personality shifts, social withdrawal, giving away things. All of this is very important to recognize when a parent needs to step in. What to do? Even if they deny struggling, your role is to stay present, patient, and proactive, showing them that help is always available when they're ready. So some things that you can do, obviously call or text 988, which is a suicide and crisis lifeline, and that can be immediate guidance. And teens can do this, parents can do this. Seek professional help, like the therapy, psychiatrists, primary care providers, or an integrative health specialist. Monitor online activity for those warning signs, the disturbing posts, the searches, the algorithms that they can get sucked into. Remove lethal means like firearms, excessive medications, sharp objects, and ropes. Can be very helpful. As always, do not blame ourselves in these situations. We can try and do better. And this is just kind of recapping that texting. Obviously, look into local mental health services that can be helpful. Attend seminars. Online mental health platforms like BetterHelp, Talkspace, or teencounseling.com can be very helpful. The crisis text line, text home to 741-741. There's books that are out there. I'm going to post on a blog post that I will link under here, some book recommendations. And then there's apps for teens like Calm, Headspace, Wobot, which is an AI mental health support, which I think is super cool. Questions for parents. I want you to sit back and think about it right now. What challenge do you see most in your teen? Mood swings or emotional outbursts, impulsivity or reckless behavior, social media stress, sleep or diet issues? I just want you to kind of think about these challenges, what you see most in your teenager. And now let's make it personal. I want you to take a moment to write down 3 small things you can do this week to support your teen. And these don't have to be grand gestures. Maybe it's a 30-minute walk together or preparing that high protein breakfast to help them focus. Could even be something simple as encouraging 1 to 2 hours of screen-free before bed. And these small steps can really have a big impact and show your teen that that you are actively supporting them. Let's summarize the takeaways from today. It's a lot, loaded, and a heavy topic. First, remember that the teen brain is still developing. The impulsivity, the emotional sensitivity, is all a part of this process, and they need our guidance and boundaries. Second, hormonal and neurotransmitter imbalances can drive mood swings and risky behaviors, and these biological changes are amplified by modern stressors like social media, academic pressures, processed diets that are ever developing over the course of the last 30 years has gotten way worse. But there's good news. Parents can make a difference. Parents have the power to influence. We do, even though sometimes we don't think we do. But focusing on nutrition, sleep routines, staying open in communication, and encouraging professional support, even if it is us starting with ourselves seeking out professional support when needed, to provide that example to our teenagers. You can help your teen build resilience. Finally, instilling hope reminds our teenagers that their current struggles are temporary and that they can look forward to a future that is bright and beautiful. Thank you so much. As parents, our role really is irreplaceable. We are the steady foundation our teen needs during this time of heightened growth and change, especially in today's world. I hope that this has been helpful, providing insight on what's happening internally, externally, and how it's all coming together to create a crisis that I pray no parent has to deal with. And if there's one thing that we can do to support our teenagers, it is to let them know they're loved, let them know that they can be forgiven, and that there's hope out there for the future. And they have the ability to do amazing